Hey, Dr. Jeff, can you hear me? It seems like you're still muted.
I'm muted, sir. No, I'm back now. There we go.
That's good. I made you host. Good luck and have fun.
All right, thank you. All right. Let's see. Get my camera set up. Start video. We'll start the call in 1 minute. Any AI news? Okay. Got a lot of note takers in here. That's good. Those are my favorite. Today, what kind of AI news did I see? Somebody did something. What was it? Where they used AI to create Red Dead Redemption. It says the full game, which seems crazy if they made the full Red Dead. I've never played Red Dead Redemption. I hear it's good. I don't play enough video games, or maybe I play just the right amount. I don't know what the answer would be there. But if somebody was able to recreate an entire video game at that scale just using AI, that's wild. I do wonder, haven't looked into it, did they just make a cool video? But that's a little bit easier to do, right? A full game is, I almost can't believe that's possible, right? Not that it's not possible, but just not feasible, right? Where it's, yeah, because if you look at how much more difficult doing a game like that is than, say, a movie, then not enough people are talking about that then, right? Because games like that cost hundreds of millions of dollars. They're not cheap, right? So it's not just like saying nobody's even recreated an entire movie, like a low budget movie, using AI that was any good. That they could possibly do Red Dead with AI completely. I don't know. Maybe I should look into that story a little bit more before I present it to a bunch of note takers. Oh, and Ed's here. Okay, good. So it's not just me and the note takers. Other AI stuff. Oh, I don't know if I brought this up. I think I might have, but it's going to be worth repeating. I'm probably going to cite this statistic repeatedly going forward. So I might as well bring it up again. MIT does a study and says that 90% of AI projects, I think, or like projects that companies try to implement are failures. That's a tough failure rate, 90%. I wonder what that compares to other types of projects. I totally believe that. And the reasoning is a lot of the best AI engineers are scooped up by 7 companies or something. Meta, Google, Microsoft, OpenAI, Grok, Claude, Perplexity, NVIDIA. I mentioned them already, passed them twice. And then you got everybody else, right? And I think there are 3 important components to making a good AI system. Well, maybe as I go through this, it'll be 4 or 2 or whatever. But one is actually knowing AI models, the AI technology, best model for the job, not just using whatever model. Hey, this kind of does it. Because there's a lot of stuff out there that will do the job, but not do the job well. For instance, I'm working on a number of OCR projects. I love OCR. I don't know if I love OCR, but like I love what OCR could do for the world. Being able to digitize documents is incredibly important. There's so many documents out there. It's a huge time saver. It's one of these things that people don't realize that AI can do that will really just free us up for more time and get resources where we need them. Education, legal, politics, healthcare, right? These are industries where we want people to have more time and resources, right? We want to be healthier. We want better laws and regulations, being able to get the legal machine moving when it's doing what it's supposed to. And then education, definitely needs more education. So I do a lot of OCR, right? And I run into different engineers, whoever, and they'll use another model to do OCR. Why not just use Google Vision, right? Best in class. I think Google Vision has a best in class one. I think Amazon maybe has a really good one. Paddle OCR, I've heard is good for open source, but then they'll use all these other models and it's like, why just have less accuracy? What are you doing? You have high accuracy open source models. You have high accuracy API models. What are you doing here? That's just one. But it takes time. You have to look at it. You have to benchmark. You have to test out your use case. So that's one aspect, is like just like technically using the right model for the job, looking it up, finding it, testing out. Second is AI architecture and coordination. Most likely you don't need just one model. You need multiple models working in coordination with each other. That's what we do with these workflows, right? Like a lot of times, even with our end workflows, which are a little bit simpler than, say, the agentic workflow of OpenAI and of their platform. You'll see in our workflows, we're using multiple models for the same model multiple times, right? Breaking the thing up into its specific tasks. It takes a very precise breaking things down way of looking at stuff, right? And so that AI architecture, do this, that, that. Each step relies on each other. You want to make sure each step is doing what it's supposed to. Boom, boom. Excellent. I like it. I think it's fun. It's a fun puzzle. I think for a lot of people, that's not as much fun. Who wants to do all that stuff? And then potentially the most important, and I could see it being the one that like causes the most, and it's hidden, or it feels hidden, because, oh wow, an AI, oh wow, oh wow, look at that, look at that, look at what the AI did. That's so cool. That's, oh my gosh. Can you like it did this and then it did that. Wow. Wow, that's great. Oh man. And the stakeholders are happy. That just looks so cool. Do you want to use it? At first, sure. Yeah. The early adopters, like, hey, it's AI. And then there's some people who are like, AI. And then after a while, they're like, do I have to? Is this not really helping? It looked cool. The commercial looked good. The short clip of somebody making Red Dead Redemption means that they could do the whole thing. And so it's really that usability, right? Like that ability for a user to want to use it. Well, I'm already yawning. I'm putting myself to sleep over here. Yeah, of course these AI projects are failing. You have people who don't know the models, who are not architecting in a structured, organized, thoughtful manner. And then they're not thinking about the user. Is this useful for the user? And we went over, I think, not all this stuff. We talked about a lot of these things in one of our Friday lecture series. But yeah, like these three things, if you're not, and I think that people just, they want to do it. And I get it. I was like that originally too. And then I built like 50 AI systems and saw some of these flaws. I think I always started from a good place, but I think one of the, like when I would first start doing is like, yeah, I'll just have the AI do it. And then really quickly, I would just get slammed in the face with just, can't just have the AI do it. You have to think it out, break down the problem, and really assess what you're doing. Okay. All right. I am going to present this end-to-end workflow. We do only have the note takers in Ed, so this might go a little bit faster, but we'll see. Oh, hello.
Can I ask a quick question?
There's nothing else better you do right now.
I've been away for 3 weeks on holiday, so I've been out of the frame. So I've left AI alone for the last 3 weeks. I've been trying to keep up. ChatGPT 5's been released. There's been a few others. So I had quite a few of the subscriptions. There's been a lot of agentic developments in that time. Kind of returning back to the fold, where would you kind of now put your investment of time? Do writing data analysis, write articles, ask lots of questions of AI? My thoughts are to resubscribe to the Plus on GPT-5, the Claude, and possibly one of the agentic ones. But I've seen some of Julian's recent stuff, and it seems that area is changing really quickly. The agentic, I'm not a coder, and it seems that the agentic stuff is now even self-agency in the tools themselves. So I'm just wondering, Manus, I think GenSpark was one of the agents of choice. I just wonder whether you've any thoughts on where you might invest at the minute.
So I think GPT-5 was an interesting update. When I was like looking for, oh, is it going to do something fundamentally different? I don't think it does. I think that it was just like a facelift, right? Where
Yeah.
I do feel like the responses are more thoughtful, more accurate. I think that it is a little bit better at the logic type of things, like data analysis, things like that. So I do think it is been upgraded. I had been shifting away from GPT to Claude for a lot of data analysis or like HTML coding, things like that, just because it has the larger context window, which was really important for a lot of these things. And then it just was better seemingly at the logic. I think that GPT-5 has caught up. I don't know if it's surpassed it. They're saying that it's better than Claude. I think that it's really hard to benchmark that type of thing. So I still feel like if you're doing tasks, those are still two of the best. If you're doing a lot of internet research, Perplexity is going to be more accurate on your internet research. And
I've got a free subscription, luckily, to Perplexity Pro. So I do use that when I need a referenced thing. I found Gemini useful, in terms of the large context window. So if I got an input and wanted a large output, it was useful for that. The quality of the writing wasn't as good as Claude. I think Claude still leads on the quality of writing. I just wondered whether one of the agentic tools, GenSpark seems to be up there, Manus was there, but there seems to be a whole range of other things coming out. Whether anything...
And then in last week's class, we test drove Google Opal. And the Opal, what we saw in the class was just like, and this is way too much AI stuff is like this now. And we have to see, will it develop where Opal is essentially unusable for real projects. It is a good, maybe POC. It's like something that, like I was saying at the top, where it's like, oh, like it'll dazzle people. It's like, oh, look at this. Hey, you could just type things in and you get a workflow. Do you actually want to use that workflow? I thought like it was very simple. And I do think that it's potentially, not what I was telling people on the call, it could be in 5 years, Opal is the default agentic system because they took that idea, they grew it out, and they're stress testing and getting edge cases and figuring out what it is to make a language-based agentic workflow builder work. We do a lot of the N8N stuff. As far as, I'll say one thing I've seen with some of these people who are promoting the agentic side of stuff, a lot of it is, and again, it goes back to this Opal thing or what I've been saying, you can show the concept or it's possible, but then really to get it to work at a very high level, you have to spend a lot of time on it. You really have to think it out. And I think that once you're getting to that stage, then nobody's really doing anything that is markedly better than anybody else. Really, you still need to figure out at even just a human level, what do you want it to do? How is it going to do it? And that's one of the reasons why, again, 90% of these projects fail, right? Is that people aren't really spending time to look at, okay, sure, you can make an agentic workflow, but then is it just worse than what you would actually get from a bunch of people who are doing the work? And this is part of the reason why when you hear everyone say AI is going to take everyone's jobs, pretty soon the agentic, and this was because people would show these demos, right? And this is the year of agents where everyone's like agent. And then I still am not seeing widespread or even medium spread or small spread versions of people successfully using agents in a real type of way. So I don't think it's shifted that much. And it really is, there's still a lot of work to be done on figuring out workflows. And actually, in our last call, one of our members, she is working on something. I was telling her, like, this is actually a $1 billion idea, which is that she was building an AI system that would analyze workflows. And I was like, yeah, this actually, because if you can figure that part out, how to get an AI system to analyze somebody's workflows by like tracking what they're doing on their computer and using a combination of the commands that they're using along with computer vision to track what's happening on their screen. And you could actually pull out useful data on what their workflow is doing and then taking that and translating that into AI automation and agents. Something like that is going to change the world. Like,
You get Julian with his automatic postings on YouTube, and I think there's several a day. And then
Right.
this is insane. And to be honest, you've got to take it with a pinch of salt. So I do question whether those actually will deliver the value. I don't, what your strategy is, but it tends to be a distraction from what might be of value, because occasionally there will obviously be one that hits the mark. But if you're just throwing out more and more quantity without the quality control, then literally that's the problem with agents, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, quality controlling. And this is the problem with a lot of AI, right? And this is actually one of my sort of specialties, or one of the things I have started to grow into, because companies will have tried AI, or they will be weary of it for a variety because they already see some of the issues. And part of the solution is using AI to do quality control on the again. To give you a simple example, so I do a lot of image generation and image generation pipelines. I have in the past. And right now I'm doing a lot more in the compliance world, which is also just quality control and everything. And one of the solutions I had, like I had a client and they're like, the problem is that when you do image generation, the hands don't look right. The hands and the feet don't look right. We're generating all this stuff. And so then I was like, yeah, okay, here's the solution. I will add a computer vision model at the end. It's going to find the hands in your images, and then it will evaluate whether or not the hands are quality hands or non-quality hands, and then it'll discard all the images that have non-quality hands. And by doing that, they were able to no longer have that issue. This is a good visual sort of understanding of this same problem, which is you cannot let the AI just go unchecked. And thankfully, part of what we have though is that
What do you recommend for text? Because I find the images are sometimes quite good, but the text is all jumbled, misspelled, all over
on images.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So they have that as an issue. Getting text on an image, I think that they're getting better and better. It's just, if you look at how it's done, it had to be a separate pipeline completely, because if you look at the way that the technology for how an image is generated, there's no way the text would ever be done faithfully from that. And so then they have the newer models. I think ChatGPT's image generator is pretty good with text, but they still make mistakes, but you can give it feedback to fix its text, which is good. So I like to use that if I have to do something that's text-based. I think that the Flux models are better. That's just something where we're using state-of-the-art prototype technology, and it's just like they don't have that. Another solution is to just try to keep the text out of the actual image and then add it later. But there aren't great solutions for text. But then again, what you can do is a similar type of solution as what I was just saying. Use OCR, read the text in the image, and then if the image text is wrong, have it regenerate. And that's a way to automate that process, quality control, and you can use a variety of different models to analyze this stuff. And my point was going to be is that a lot of the analysis models are the ones that were developed first. So OCR, computer vision, object detection, all of that stuff has been around for over a decade, right? And so we have all of these quality control AI models. We've had those longer than we've had the generative AI models. That's just extra work to add the quality control models at the end of the generative models, and people don't like to do the extra work. But there are solutions in that way, and that is, again, like, people are going to start to shift over to that, or at least the smart ones, where it's don't just let the AI do something wrong because it's automated and because, it's going to do everything fairly quickly. Just have it do multiple versions and then have a quality control system that ranks them and then only gives you the ones that have high quality. So that's the solution. And then back to the Julian, I think that there's different ways we have to get people to integrate and onboard AI. And part of that is the hype machine, right? We got to get people excited, because if you don't get people excited, they're not going to do it. And part of that excitement, though, is learning that, hey, great, you've taken your first step, which is the most important step in deciding you want to start AI because you abilities are, and that, hey, look, it can do all these amazing things, which it absolutely can do. You do need to start testing it out, trying it. Like your first week in AI, I think people make it seem like, yeah, in 1 week, you can just build an entire AI workforce, take your company to the next level, and then that'll be it. That's no, not really. But we do got to get you started on this journey and starting to see that these things are possible, that there is these great solutions. It is going to take some time and some effort to not just filter out the noise, the signal from the noise, but also where does it fit for you? How do you fit into that ecosystem? And you're not going to start unless you start.
I suppose, yeah, I understand he's trying to build a business with numbers and you've got to get your numbers in somehow. I guess then how do you get a pathway to take you from getting involved to dealing with some of the problems we just discussed around how you get past just the initial problems with AI, which presents a number of problems that people often don't get past. And then how do we get on a pathway so we can develop products that are sustainable, really, and
That's
becomes a developmental learning process, really. Yeah.
That's these coaching calls, right? So if you look at a marketing scheme, like a lot of Julian and his videos are the top of the funnel, right? Where he is trying to bring in the most people possible. He's like, hey, are you interested in AI? Great. We can do all these great things. And then you get into my coaching calls and I'm a little bit more of a realist because I actually have to walk through all of the end-to-end workflows. I'm very pro AI. I think that this is investing in this is 100% the best investment you could probably make right now in yourself, right? Where just being AI literate, understanding AI, like being able to start to leverage it and being able to understand it better, having done this groundwork, you don't want to be the person who starts this 5 years from now, right? And there are tools that if you like, we cannot say guarantee you success or even guarantee that you're going to learn the right lessons you're supposed to learn, right? Everyone is going to take in what they're going to take in. But I think that with the workflows that are provided, with the videos and the ideas that Julian gives people, and then my coaching and other tips that I'm giving people, if you want and you have good ideas and you're asking questions and you're doing whatever, there is a solution here, but not everyone's going to be a millionaire. Not everyone's going to.
My interest is just I'm interested in AI and the technology and
Yeah.
what's going to develop from this. I don't have a commercial need for this, but I find it fascinating and this is all very useful. The whole setup is very useful. So I'm not making a criticism of the whole thing. It's just that aspect. I can be distracted onto the automated videos and maybe I should ignore those and just focus on this.
And I do think, yeah, and everybody's different, right? Like you have your own specific use cases and what you want to know, right? And then somebody else, they are trying to unlock things for their business in a different way, or even they're trying to, the same type of excitement or wow, sizzle that you see in these other videos, they need to present to their clients, right? And they want that sort of level of understanding, even just like those phrases, that way of presenting things to their own clients. But then if they can do that, then yeah, land the client, but then also within our coaching calls, start to understand things like, okay, yeah, like this all sounds good. And now you've landed the client. Start to really think about how your users are going to use your product, right? And start to really think about, okay, we need to start breaking this down into multiple steps instead of just, hey, look, we can just do all this in one shot. So I see, and it's really there for not just selling people on joining the program, but how they should sell AI to people. And then mine is a little bit more, okay, we're all sold on AI. Now what? And trying to get people to, again, not be part of that 90% statistic. And I do think that if all you take away from this at times is those Julian videos, you can fall into that trap because it is all just AI is amazing. And that concept that just AI is amazing, use the AI wand to fix everything, will lead you down the wrong road. But if you complement everything together, and you spend the time on the end workflows in the different courses, and then you spend time in these coaching calls, then you really are going to have that well-rounded sort of AI education that frankly isn't out there. One of the reasons why I do these is that the university system is not doing anything for this yet. I first started studying neuroscience or AI 25 years ago, right? And so I have been in this for a while. And when I started recently, like a few years ago, different programs like this wanted me to help them teach I was trying to teach the curriculum that I had learned before, not even the deep math and engineering that was there. And quickly I realized, oh no, we're in a totally different world of AI now. People don't really want to know how perceptrons work and how a neural network works. They want to know, how do I connect an LLM to a RAG system and why? And that level of education or even in workflows, the universities aren't teaching. So where are people going to get that education? There is this gap, and this probably the most in demand, most important skill there is, and there is no university course for it.
The other major challenge is there's nothing changing quite as dynamically as this particular field
Yeah.
of speech. You leave it for a couple of weeks and things have moved on at pace. You can't really even set a curriculum as such, can you?
There's certain things that are staying the same, but part of it is the transformer technology, the LLMs, and these image generators, diffusion-based image generation and the LLM technology. They came out with that stuff, and then they showed some amazing results, right? Like Mid-Journey, people were just making dragons out of flowers and cotton candy, and they were like, whoa. And then they started talking to these LLMs on ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, and they're like, whoa, look at this. And that base sort of technology of an LLM or an image generator was really totally practically figured out. Like a lot of it was initially, hey, look, you tell a joke to ChatGPT, or you could generate this image, but it has all these problems, right? Like the hands don't look right and the words don't look right. And okay, you can generate an image. What about a video? And so they are now taking that base technology, and they just keep pushing that and pushing that. And that is changing rapidly, like where they're taking sort of these core models and then just exploding the use cases for them. But even a lot of that stuff, there's still more room to go with all of those. We will probably hit, I don't know, a bubble or something soon where it's okay, we've taken these models and gone as far as we can with them. What's that next level that is going to change everything? But yeah, and I think that there's such a huge amount of like resources and investment that's going into this. And then, but we were saying in one of our previous calls, it's interesting where somebody was asking, like, could we do like a benchmark competition between American models and Chinese models? And I was saying, what's actually interesting is that really those are your only two choices, that there are American models and then there are models from China. I don't even know if I see models as, oh, like this is a great new model out of Russia, right? Or this is a great new Saudi Arabian model. So it seems like there are two countries that are like very invested in this and pushing it. And actually, I'll tell you, like when I was in school 25 years ago, most of the graduate school were Chinese students. Like literally from China, we had a program with them to bring them in. And so China has been interested in AI for a very long time. And now these are like the dominant superpowers in the AI world. But within those two like huge, powerful countries, the amount of interest is incredible. You know, people wanting to invest in it and things like that. And but yeah, I think this year I feel like it went even faster. Like last year was like, okay, like this is pretty fast. Now there are just new developments. And I think that a lot of it is just like development time, right? Where it's like they've been thinking about or been like some of the new things we've seen, like BO3 this year. They probably started working on BO3 like 2 years ago or something. So yeah, I think that it's a lot to keep up with. There is a lot of stuff going on. I like to maintain, like I have a few projects or different sort of platforms that I stick to. And then I like to just test things out here and there. And it's
Do you
okay.
use any of the Chinese platforms?
So I had like when DeepSeek came out, I tested it out just so that I could like have it under my belt as okay, like if anybody wants DeepSeek, I can help you with DeepSeek. There was a video generator one that I haven't done any video gen in a while, but people swear by. It's at least pretty high quality. I'll say that much. I don't know if I think that there does get to be this conversation. Oh, this one's better than that one. That one's better than. There's just so many different ways to use these things. You have so many different use cases that it's hard to say this is better than that. Or like when people ask me, well, what do you think is better, ChatGPT or Claude? It's like, oh, depends on what you're doing. I do feel like, again, where it's like, hey, if you're doing internet research, you want to use Perplexity. You don't really want to use these other, you can, but you're going to get fake citations when you use even. And I'm surprised. I don't know what it is about the agentic system that they use to search the internet on both GPT and Claude, but I am surprised that it's okay. You're still going to return web links that don't exist. I don't know why they built it that way, and what they can't undo that makes it grab fake web addresses. It's such a strange problem. Whenever I use Perplexity, it's good. I think a part of it is that it shows you the articles and that it's getting everything from every time. But it does become a thing where, and I brought this up before, it's like when everybody got Netflix and then they got Netflix and Hulu, then it was like Netflix and Hulu and Apple TV and Mac. And then all of a sudden they were like, look at how much I'm paying for all these different streamers. We are probably going to start doing that with AI, right? Where it's, oh, I have my GPT does this for me, Gemini does that for me, Perplexity does this for me. We're paying for all of these different things. So it is a lot to keep up with. And I can also understand why some people just aren't even dealing with it right now, just because it's so overwhelming with all the different models and platforms out there.
Okay, thanks very much. Thank you.
Yeah. Chris, you just joined the chat. You got any questions since we're doing question time? It's okay if you don't. You can just let your picture smile at me. All right, we'll go quickly over this end-to-end workflow. I just want to at least get something that we could take a look at. Okay, so today, all right, we have AI-powered WhatsApp chatbot for text, voice, etc. So this is a template. So it's for your internal support teams or product specialists. It'll automate the ingestion of product documentation and do AI-driven RAG answering via WhatsApp. So RAG, I've brought this up before. RAG last year was essentially the year of RAG. Everybody wanted a RAG system because they saw that these LLMs were great, but then they hallucinate. Or ChatGPT is cool and all, but then when I put OpenAI API and integrate it into my chatbot, it doesn't know anything about my company, so it can't really answer any questions. So then they developed these RAG system. I think a lot of people have this misconception that now the AI just has access to your information database, and it doesn't exactly work that way. The way that RAG works, and I do want everyone to be aware of this, who's either here now or sees the recording. What RAG does is it retrieves information to augment the generation. And what that means is that, let's say I ask a question, and we have the company that we have right now does plasma televisions, right? And I have a question about how to install a 72-inch Sony plasma television. So what the RAG system will do is, let's say all of the instruction manuals for all of your televisions are stored in your RAG database. So first, what you'd want to do is have maybe a semantic system up top that identifies what type of question that they're asking and of what type of product. And then what that can do is direct it to the right instruction manuals. And it knows, hey, it's looking for information on the 72-inch Sony plasma. So boom, let's go to that instruction manual specifically. And then from there, it knows it wants instructions on how to do installation. So what it does is it does a semantic search. What that means is it tries to find within the instruction manual where there's information on installation. And it finds essentially chunks. And so if you see here, we're doing document ingestion and indexing, and that's part of this process, is you break your documents into these chunks, and they can be typically 200 to 400 words, something like that. Takes those chunks, boom, boom. And what it does is it goes and it finds the chunk that makes the most sense for that. So like it's going to look for some chunks that are involved in installation. Typically, what you're looking to do is return the 3 most relevant chunks. And the reasoning why not 100 of the most relevant chunks. And you have a context window. And there's only so much information that you want to be sending over. And because there's only so large your context window is. So if you send all those chunks, it's just not even going to process them all. Then you also don't want a bunch of useless information, right? So typically you can maybe chunk things up smaller, but this is the general concept, is that you have a system that will go and retrieve the information that is most useful for the query that was being presented. And then it bundles it all up together and it sends that to your AI, right? To your LLM. So it'll take your initial question, the 3 most relevant chunks, package that together, send it to the LLM. The LLM will process the 3 chunks along with the question and then send you an answer back. And that is the general concept for RAG. And that's a lot of that is what you see here, right? Where we're splitting documents into chunks for efficient searching, these vector embeddings. So this is really just turning your tokens into math numbers that are impossible for us to understand, essentially. And then you're storing them in a way so that they're easy to be able to find through these semantic searches. So like you use a different type of database. So if you've ever heard the term database, a lot of databases are what's called structured, right? And even so, like your Excel sheet is very similar to how a database works, where it has cells and you can organize and run functions on these cells in a variety of different ways. And typically it has that very ordered concept to it where it's name, price, date, boom. And like the data is really easy to manipulate or run mathematical functions on. That is not going to work as well for a bunch of words, right? We're not really running the same type of math on a bunch of sales data that you would run on somebody taking a Charles Dickens book and turning it into mathematical vector embeddings. And so you use, in here, we're going to use MongoDB, Atlas Vector Store. And so it's just a different way of storing that information so that it is easier to retrieve. So then you have this AI-powered query and response via WhatsApp. So it's going to listen for the user's message. So they can do text message, audio message, image messages, or document messages, PDFs. So this is actually pretty interesting. Like this is a fairly useful workflow. So it's going to transcribe that audio into text. This is something I think a lot of people don't necessarily understand is that you can have it input all of these different things, but at a certain point, it is just going to turn them all into text so that you can use that information. So it takes those incoming queries and then does the similarity search, right, on your vector store. So it's going to use OpenAI's GPT with this augmented retrieval. So it's going to be augmented by, it's retrieving those chunks to produce concise, context-aware answers, right? So you take this, which gets turned into text, and then you take the vector embeddings, the chunks, and you augment your retrieval system with that. Oh, and this will also maintain your conversation across multiple terms. So this is with this memory buffer node. So this is also important, right? So this is another step that people forget. I think this is something that people just, because we use ChatGPT, we just assume like it's just set up this way. It really isn't. You have to realize that like you have to give your LLM access to memory. And a lot of times that memory is also somewhat a form of RAG, right? Where it will go and retrieve the most useful pieces of memory to augment that as well, right? There are other ways of handling this, but like that is one of the ways is to use the memory in a RAG type of situation. And then it routes to different message types to appropriate processing nodes to maximize the answer quality. We need to have Google Docs. This will have your product documentation you want to index, right? So we have to have something in Google Docs that it can turn into a RAG. you need to have your MongoDB authenticated. So you need to have credentials. You need to have your MongoDB credentials. You need to make sure that your index name matches the one configured, and you should be ready to go. Oh, and then you need to authenticate WhatsApp node with your. I didn't know that WhatsApp was Meta. Learn something new every day. Okay, so no wonder it's so difficult for me. Zuck and his WhatsApp. So you need to have your Meta credentials to get the WhatsApp node to work. As we said, MongoDB and Google. We'll see if there's anything else in here that needs a credential. And anything else in here important? You have your search index example. So yeah, they usually use cosine similarity. I don't exactly understand cosine similarity. Maybe at some point I'll just go and do it. Every one of our end-to-end workflows is downloadable. These are JSON files. All of these can be found in AI Profit Boardroom, Classroom, end-to-end templates, and workflows. And let's open up. It can. That's probably going to be some dead workflow, but it'll get me there. Go to our overview. Yeah. All right. Create workspace. Every one of the workflows you can import from file. And then, booyah. Now this is a pretty complicated one. As I have said before, if you were going to build this yourself, maybe don't do all of these things at once. Maybe start a little bit slower and go from there. We'll take a look at this top workflow really quickly, and then we'll get into that one. Oh, so this is on click. So this is going to actually set up your vector database, right? This will work on click. Google Docs importer. So as we said, you need to store whatever your product information is in Google Docs. You're going to need to have a credential here, which is usually, it's very easy. I know some people have run into trouble with this before. It should be just like signing into Google. If you have any issues, again, I would either fastest way is to ask Claude or GPT to help you with that. Also, you could probably get help from somebody in our help. And then you need to have this document ID, right? So this is, or URL. So this is going to be where you actually in your Google Drive store your product information. And then this is going to generate essentially your vector database of this information, right? So here we have our embeddings generator, which is going to take the information here and turn it into vector embeddings. You have your document chunking and your document section loader, right? And so like these different things, essentially what they're going to do is break this up into pieces, right? And because again, like you can't have everything. You do not want it to just be one big old dump. One way I explain, especially if you want to make these more complicated and you want to have multiple documents in here, right? This is only a single document. One of the analogies that I give people is that if you wanted to figure out when Benjamin Franklin's birthday was, you were at a library. Now, obviously what you should do is just Google it. It's a lot faster. But let's say it's 1984, right? And there is no Google. You're at a library. You want to figure out when Benjamin Franklin's birthday is. You would not look through every book and then until you found it. You would go to the history section. You would find a book on Benjamin Franklin. You'd go to the beginning of the book, and then you would look for something that said date, and then you would look for something that says birthday, and then you would find Benjamin Franklin's birthday. And this is a very similar type of system that you want to think about that when you're doing these vector databases, where there are not just, there's ways that you can do this in a variety of different ways. One is basically just setting things up in different folders and being able to direct to different vector database folders. The other thing you can do, this is if you want to make this bigger and badder and do something more interesting, it's what you can do is what's called meta tagging. And so you could meta tag your different chunks. And part of the things you could meta tag them with is which product document it is, right? So again, let's say you have 20 different products. One of the products is widget whizbangs, right? So then you can meta tag that chunk widget whizbang instructions. And then that would help with being able to find that a lot faster because it's meta tagged with that. And then you could potentially you could filter by meta tags. There's all kinds of different ways that you would want to organize your vector database when it is more complicated than this. This is a very simple one. It is based on one document. I was working on a project where it was 1,000, 10,000 page documents. We used a slightly more complicated system than that. But this is the general concept that I think that is, again, alluding to at the top. This is how you get started. Let's get our feet wet. Let's get this under our belt. And then once you get this figured out, then maybe it's time to do something a little bit more complicated. Then I'm just going to quickly run through the different nodes. So you have your WhatsApp trigger. It comes through, and then it has different ways of handling things, right? So is it text, audio, image, document, right? And so then it goes through, each one of these are a different form of processing. So text is simple, just map text prompt, boom. Audio, you get that WhatsApp voicemail audio source, you download the email voicemail, and then this is going to translate that into text. Boom. And then, let me just do something. I guess that's already, and then it's mapping within here the text prompt. So it's handling this. It's basically this is basically taking over all of this here, right? So text to text mapping, then this turns it into text and then maps it. In a similar type of way, you have this. Now it's getting the image source URL. It's downloading that image, and then it's analyzing the image. And then this is also mapping that image prompt. And then finally, this is getting the document source, downloading the document source. It's mapping the file extensions so that, boom, you have all of these different ways of handling the different file extensions. This is pretty cool. Again, if I were to build this initially, I would not have this here. I would test it out with one of these, make sure it all works. I would actually not do here. This whole portion, if I was to build this initially, I would not have it here on my first build. I would take out this. I would just do this guy, right? Can it do text first? Great. Can it do voice? Great. Can it do image? Great. Can it do CSV? Great. Then do all these, right? Do not, if you are building this, build like this. Not that this is wrong. What I'm saying is you get to this stage eventually. When you are first starting, you do need to do this. This is, that's not what I wanted. You have to do this. This is pretty simple, and every aspect of this. If you look, this is just trigger, document, your database system. And this is necessary for the whole rest of it to work. So I would put this together first so that you have your vector database and that you know that it's working. And then I would have gone here to here, right? And then every one of these pieces, I would add piecewise from there to make sure that it works. And then, okay, so then once we have everything mapped, I'm just going to go over this really quickly just so we can finish. You have your knowledge base agent, which is getting the information from there. You have this OpenAI chat, and then this is providing memory. We talked about that. This is your Mongo vector store. So this is the same vector storage from up there. And then this has got our embeddings. So this is just our knowledge base agent. It uses this chat functionality along with this memory storage, and then this vector database, which is set up in this other portion up here. The same vector database that's being generated from here. And then it's using embeddings. You need to have this embeddings OpenAI to be able to translate everything. And then it sends out the response. And then even this, like this node, I would have probably added at the end after I made sure that I was getting good answers out of this initially. So that's the general concept of this project again. So there's different spots where you need to add your credentials. You're going to need to add credentials here. Boom, credential. You are going to need to add credentials here for your Mongo database. OpenAI is going to want credentials. And in WhatsApp, you need to add WhatsApp credentials here. So once you add all your credentials to this, and then you can test this one out and then make this one a little bit easier, simpler, maybe start taking it apart and not necessarily building it from scratch, adding the different pieces as you go. Basically, and how do I get back to, there we go. Allow recording. Oh, that's great. Okay, Chris. All right. And so then that was, stop sharing, our edited workflow for the day. If you have any feedback, please share it with us. Tomorrow, I think we are going to continue with our AI for Business lecture series. Let me know if you have, I'll be here tomorrow. Same typical bat time as usual. Today, we just need to, yeah. All right. Thank you. Have a good one.